beings are always going to want to be in community. We're there, you know, with exception. But mostly, interaction feeds us. You know, if things are on purpose, then there's a purpose in 8 billion of us inhabiting this place, you know, to interact with each other in the ways that we do. So this, you know, when I mentioned that article a little bit earlier, community and meaningful community at the center of our livelihood will be there, will be present. To gather together in the name of and an understanding of the spiritual nature of things it's who we are. So that compass that lives within us that will continue to move us back to, even in our own personal practice, some sort of adoration of our true nature, a spiritual practice. Just thought I'd say that. Paramahansa Yogananda says, the whole drama of Jesus' life was a testament to the supremacy of human's spirit over matter. The whole drama of Jesus' life was a testament to the supremacy of a human's spirit over matter. Today's Easter Sunday, right? So in our calendar, we celebrate, you know, in Western Christianity, we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. We need to roll things back, not the rock. We need to, yeah, right? We're not there yet. I want to roll back the tape to a few days before that, actually, and life before that, so to speak. To just kind of living, you know, so Jesus was alive, and there was just a time where he was kind of cruising around the countryside with his people ministering, right? He had his 12 folks, and he was going around, he was teaching them, and then they'd go have a meal here and do a miracle there and do this here and do this there, and they did that for a few years, right? And that was just kind of how it was back then. Jesus was a rabble-rouser. He, with, you know, in the midst of the occupation of the Romans in their homeland, Jesus came to cause trouble, which is a good thing. And every once in a while, in our lives, see, what we have to do is look at this story as a story of consciousness, as the activity of mind, as the activity of heart, as the activity of feeling, as the activity of awareness, as the activity of your awareness. You know, we can be entertained by the Passion of the Christ, or this documentary about Jesus, or that documentary about Jesus, and whether or not the historical Jesus actually lived, and all of these things we can debate, but when we look at it from a standpoint of consciousness, we can sink our teeth into something. There's something that we can actually work on. So here's Jesus. Just consider for a moment all the ways that your mind is occupied right now and what it's occupied with. Your mind, your heart, what's burdening you? What is the outside source that's occupying your attention and your awareness right now? Is it the stock market? Is it tariffs? Is it that your neighbor doesn't agree with you? Is it that you can't believe that they would think like this, or they can't believe that you would think like that? What type of stuff is occupying your consciousness? So just consider that for a moment. What has your attention? What has your attention other than the love, the generosity, the kindness, the beauty, the creativity, all of the things that the Christ represents? What has your attention other than those things? Just consider that as we move through this period. So here's Jesus, and he comes along. And again, Jesus represents the Christ, which means thank you very much, means the anointed one. And do you all know that the Christ presence is alive within you, sometimes lying dormant, sometimes just needing a wake-up call, but always there. Sometimes we just need to remember, sometimes we just need to pray with somebody or come together with somebody to be reminded of who we are. Sometimes we just need to come to a Sunday service or go to a class or just pick up a sacred text and read it to be reminded that, oh, the Christ is lying latent within me, and it just needs to be activated and awakened. That was the blessing that the story, the Jesus, came along to activate within all of us. And to understand that we are more than this. I am more than this, Scripture says. And in any situation we find ourselves in life, I am more than this, even if things are going along swimmingly. Even if everything, life couldn't, how's life, Charles? Things couldn't get any better. Even in the midst of that, I am more than this. You understand, yeah? We together so far? Somebody say amen. Thank you very much. So I'd like to propose to you that there are four kind of, that within life, as we're moving through life, that we've kind of developed, they're kind of a, what am I trying to say right now? How much filler words am I going to use here? That there's an unfolding of consciousness that happens over and over again in our lives, and I would like to hopefully share a little bit about that makes sense to you as it has to do with Jesus' life. So the first things that happen is stasis. It's kind of like how life is right now, and that's how your life is right now. It's like whatever's going on, however it's occupied with whatever it is. Let's call that stasis. Let's just call it the way things are. And then from time to time, as we roll the tape back a little bit to a few days ago, what happened on Good Friday? Jesus was crucified. So what happened on Good Friday, what happened 3 days ago was death. So we're moving along in our lives, and this, now just track with me here a little bit and see if this tracks with you and how your life unfolds over and over and over and over and over again, these four different steps. Well, kind of five, because we're talking about stasis first, or just the way things are. There's the way things are, and then death happens. And then there's bewilderment, and then there's resurrection, and then there's ascension. And that's kind of the four different aspects of what happens with Jesus. There's going along, he's out with his homies, and he's teaching, and he's breaking bread, and he's doing miracles, and he's teaching, and he's doing these things, and they're just going along. And then, as part of what was purposeful about the whole story, something that had to happen, and Jesus didn't want it to happen, right? He said, if you can, Father, take this cup from me. I don't really want it, man. I mean, who wants to be nailed to a cross like this and then left there to, talk about torture. Eventually they came along, not to get too graphic about it, but I'm sure you guys know the story. Eventually they came along, and because he was suffering so much, they stuck a sword in his side to help the process along. Agonizing, right? It's gruesome. And how many times have you gone through a death where you're like, oh my God, I don't know if I can make it through this one? What's another word for death? A softer, subtler word. Change. When something's kind of going along and it is the way that it is, and you're occupied by whatever you're occupied with, and then something comes along and happens. A change. The toughest kind of change is that kind of death where you feel like who you are, your identity. Could be the loss of a job, right? What else could it be? A health challenge? What else could it be? Having to file for bankruptcy? What else could it be? Split up in a relationship? What else could it be? You just feel lost? You don't feel your connection anymore? I can look at every single thing I just said and say, check, 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 check. Death of a loved one? Check. Change happens. But I invite you to consider this as stages of the development of consciousness that happen over and over again in our lives, though, gang. So we're moving along and everything seems to be fine, or it is just the way that it is. And then some sort of big change comes along, whatever it might be for you. That's the death. And then there's bewilderment. And that's the time between the crucifixion of Jesus and the resurrection of Jesus. What do we do now? What do I do now? This guy comes along and he's like, follow me, or, things, do as I say and listen to me. And, our whole identity becomes around like how things are and how they're being presented. Then all of a sudden a change happens or a death happens, and then we're bewildered. What do I do now? Now what? And there's that time of fear and that time of angst and that time of anxiety, that time of trepidation. Those things where we're like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. You've lost a job. You've lost a loved one. A relationship has changed. A health challenge. Now what? What am I going to do? I'm going to die. Well, you just did. And now the reorganization takes place. Now the reorganization takes place. Now there's a resurrection that happens where all of a sudden, through the change, you can start to see the light. And every single one of those things that I've just mentioned, every single one of the deaths that I've experienced in life has somehow made life taste a little sweeter. Hasn't it? Somehow. If we have a consciousness to see and a willingness and ears to hear and a willingness to continue to play the game in this paradigm, somehow I get a little bit of a sweeter perspective. Oh, I had that health challenge. Oh, I was scared for so long and I had to go to so many doctor's appointments and I had to, go to treatment for alcoholism or whatever the thing is. It's this or that and I'm so scared and how's life going to be, and I'm futurizing and I'm filled with anxiety, and then I just keep putting one foot in front of the other. There's a reorganization that takes place and somehow a resurrection where I can see and taste life as a little bit sweeter. And what we don't talk about often enough is what happened actually after Jesus was resurrected, because he comes back, and the first person, anybody know the first person to see Jesus after he was resurrected was Mary Magdalene. And at first she was like, who is that? Who are you? Like at first, the Christ wasn't recognized. Dig this. This is awesome stuff, man, for our own consciousness. And woman, I say man, forgive me. You get it. But at first, the Christ resurrected come back. It's like, do you not recognize yourself sometimes? Like, whoa, I'm changed. And at first, Mary Magdalene and the disciples didn't recognize the resurrected Christ. Like, plus you're dead. What are you doing here? And Jesus said, don't touch me, because this process isn't fulfilled yet. You can't touch me because the process isn't fulfilled yet. Because one thing we don't talk about enough, what happens after the resurrection? Say it again, the ascension. The ascension happens after that, where, as the story goes, Jesus is ascended into what? Heaven. Isn't that cool? I mean, there's something about just the evolution of consciousness in this story that's profound, and the implications for us are powerful and potent. We go from stasis, this is the way life is, to death or change, to bewilderment, to resurrection, to ascension. And we could do that in a day. That could happen in a day. Certainly it could happen over the course of a lifetime. It could happen over the course of a project. It could happen over the course of a relationship. Within a relationship. When I do weddings, I haven't done a wedding in some time, but one of the things I love to share with folks, and one of the things that I think is that I have really come to now in seeing the beauty of relationships, is that if we're present enough, even in relationships we've been in with brothers, sisters, lovers, friends, whatever it is, there's always something new to discover. There's always something new to discover about a relationship, about ourselves. And that, my friends, is a willingness to participate in the passion project of your own life. The passion project of your own life. So you're moving along right now. You're sitting where you're sitting, and The life that you have is the life that you have, and it's constructed the way that it is right now, and it is what it is. How often do I sit and welcome, though? Maybe not necessarily welcome, but at least understand that something at some point is going to change. That something at some point is going to be different with our children, with our parents, with whatever. Those big areas of our lives. And then we can be bewildered and wonder what the heck is going on, and this wasn't part of it. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. And we sit in the bewilderment of the change, but then we stick with it, and hopefully we're praying with people, and that's what Jesus did. Jesus went, he said, you guys come, before the crucifixion happened, he was like, you guys come pray with me. And what happened in the Garden of Gethsemane is he invited them to come pray, but they all what? Took a snooze. That's another aspect of this whole unfoldment within each one of us. Like bringing all of ourselves along. Like the Christ within us is like, we know this is before us, and we want to move into it consciously and head on and take it with our eyes wide open. Jesus knew he was going to be crucified. We know there's going to be times of change in our lives. And if we can have that cup pass before us, we want to. But we want to bring all of it along with us, and sometimes the pride falls asleep. We want to bring it all along with us. Sometimes the bewilderment stops us from really wanting to welcome those times of growth. We want to constantly be in an awareness where we're welcoming growth, because I know that within each one of us, as we participate with that passion project, life gets sweeter and better. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's more money or a different relationship or whatever. Sometimes, gang, death is the answer. That's a hard one to get. Sometimes sometimes that's the resurrection and then the ascension. But do we understand that we live within a spiritual context? We live in a spiritual construct that is designed to support us in our highest unfoldment. That's what the Christ came along to remind us. It's what the whole point of the story is. Back to the quote. Where was the quote? The whole drama of Jesus' life was a testament to the supremacy of your spirit over matter. Of your spirit over matter. Sometimes we ask each other, oftentimes when it seems like someone's in distress, we ask our friends or we ask somebody that's close to us, we say, what's the matter? What's the matter? Isn't that a trip? Like, what's the matter? And then the matter is the thing, right? The matter is what we've made real. What's the matter? Well, the matter is that he said bad words to me. Or the matter is that I lost my job. Or the matter is I'm having a tough time in my relationship. Or he broke up with me, or she broke up with me. They broke up with me. The matter is this. The matter is that. The matter is I'm having a health challenge. Well, the whole idea of Jesus' life, the Christ presence, was come along to prove that our spirit is more than the matter. More than the matter. And we have matter going on in our lives, don't we? We could each go around and say what's the matter in our lives right now. We've got fear, we've got concern, we've got anxiety. I get it. But we don't want to walk around indulging each other with that, do we? I mean, we say I understand from a friendly standpoint because we want to be compassionate and empathic, and I get that. But what do we really want is we want to be free. We want to grow and change and become more. And how would it be if we stood in front of each other as a community? And we even ask, what's the matter? Well, the matter is this. Well, I understand that, and I know, and then you might not say this, but I'm going to say it now in this setting this morning, that the presence and the power and the love of Christ is more than that. That you might be dying right now and you might be bewildered, but I promise you that there is a resurrection coming along and an ascension into a new heaven. Because that is the promise, folks. And we don't want to get stuck anywhere along the line. Well, if you want to get stuck anywhere, get stuck in ascension. If you want to hang out for a long period of time anywhere, hang out in ascension, the ascension of your new heaven, right? So we're moving along in life the way it is right now. A death is going to come. Somehow, some way in our lives, a change is going to happen. Things happen in the human experience. We've found this by now, haven't we? The idea of a spiritual practice isn't to make everything perfectly fine all the time. It's that when the challenges arise, can I meet them with my anointing? Can I meet them with an expanded consciousness? Can I meet them with a possibility-driven sense of awareness that, okay, I'm moving through it right now. This feels like death, and I'm going to kick and scream and gnash my teeth and be bewildered and go through the motions. But at some point, just as the seed is in the soil, thank goodness the seed doesn't give up when it's in the soil, right? Thank goodness the seed doesn't give up when it's in the soil, or else we wouldn't have this. Thank goodness the seed knows that the soil, that darkness is there to nurture it. It's there to help it blossom and bloom. It's there to help it emerge into its full colors. Thank goodness the seed doesn't get stuck in the death. That it just moves through the time. Now, the seed knows nothing of bewilderment. That's a human condition. But then there's an emergence that happens. And as we move through that process of bewilderment, of death, of change, of newness, that a resurrection happens and the light starts to shine, and then we begin to ascend. And each of us, I know, if we had a maybe someday we'll do this. We're not going to do it today. But if at some portion we had a testimony portion of our service, at some point we had I want to testify this morning, Reverend Charles, each one of you could come up here and testify to the process that I'm talking about. I know it. It's a construct. It's a context. It's a form with which to comprehend why we go through what we go through, and that the promise at the end of the day, all this is liberation, is freedom. This stuff, this book right here I've shared, there's 2 volumes this big where he breaks down the Gospels. 2 volumes this big, Paramahansa Yogananda, talking about the metaphysical, and we might do a class on it at some point. It'll take 5 years, once a week. Are you in? 5 years, once a week. It'll be but it's profound, about the metaphysical aspects of the Christ and how it relates the resurrection of the Christ within you. It's the resurrection of the Christ within Carol and within Susan and within Robin. It's the resurrection of the Christ within you. Not some fanciful story for our entertainment, not just something that happened a few thousand years ago, but the emergence of Jim as a powerhouse of resurrection, of possibility. Within our community even. So we've had a few injuries in our community and a few surgeries. We come back better than ever. We're new. We know. I know. That's why we have other people know it for us too while we're moving through those changes, right? Sometimes in the middle of it, it's damn difficult. But we heal and we emerge and we change. So I invite you to consider this week within the context that I've outlined. How's life going for you right now? Consider where you're resisting change, or those little deaths, the big deaths, whatever they are, those changes. And then understand there'll be a period of bewilderment. But there will always be a resurrection, a new life, a new opportunity. And the process isn't quite complete until you ascend into a new heaven, to a new awareness. And you'll see, perhaps, that change is as subtle as where I used to get plugged in by that person, I don't get plugged in anymore. That's an ascension into heaven. Where I used to get bugged by this, I don't get bugged by it anymore. Where I used to stay away from the headlines, now I can go read the headlines and understand that it truly is what's been called a prayer request. That I can use it as a prayer and not just a source of drama or fear, but the world crying out, we want to be free. In love with each other. That's truly whole, on fire, peaceful, serene. But the point of spiritual practice, gang, is not so that we'll pray ourselves high enough so that we won't ever experience another challenge in our lives. It's to pray ourselves up enough that we have the grace, some sort of context perhaps, to roll with them as they come, to flow when these challenges arrive. Move through the process. And it may not be as serene as, I'm in the midst of a death right now. Yes, I'm so blessed. Bring this death on. No, even Jesus, one of the most enlightened that ever lived, if the cup path would pass before me, please let it pass. But there's death, there's bewilderment, there's resurrection, there's ascension. Let us embrace the process and understand that we will continue to go through it. And on this day, on this Easter, let us celebrate all of the ways that we are ascending into the heaven of our own consciousness today. I'm grateful for each one of you. I bless you, and so it is. Amen.